British cinema has always produced fearless storytellers, yet some of its greatest achievements slipped through the cracks. These films were not failures. They were overlooked, buried, or misunderstood. What remains are powerful works filled with tension, beauty, and raw humanity. Today we uncover 13 British films, so good you will wonder why nobody told you. Number 13, The Long Good Friday, 1980. The Long Good Friday is not just a gangster film. It is a portrait of Britain standing at the edge of a new era. Released at the dawn of the 1980s, the film captures London during a moment of economic uncertainty and political transition. The old criminal order is colliding with global money, modern terror, and invisible power. At the center stands Harold Shand, a self-made crime boss who believes he can civilize his empire and turn violence into respectability. What makes the film extraordinary is its refusal to romanticize power. Harold is charismatic, intelligent, and deeply flawed. He believes force and charm can control everything. Over the course of a single holiday weekend, that belief is dismantled piece by piece. The threats he faces are faceless, strategic, and impossible to intimidate. The film builds tension not through action, but through inevitability. Every conversation, every silence carries weight. London itself becomes a character. Construction sites, docks, hotels, and political events form a city transforming faster than its criminals can adapt. The score pulses with confidence that slowly turns into panic. By the final moments, the film delivers one of the most devastating endings in British cinema. No speeches, no escape, just realization. The Long Good Friday was ahead of its time. Number 12, Get Carter, 1971. Get Carter stripped British crime cinema down to the bone. There is no glamour here, no clever moral balance, just cold revenge and industrial decay. Released in the early 1970s, the film reflects a Britain eroded by class resentment, corruption, and brutal realism. Michael Caine delivers a performance so restrained, it becomes terrifying. Jack Carter is not a hero. He is a professional predator returning to his hometown after his brother dies under suspicious circumstances. The town he encounters is bleak, morally compromised, and suffocating. Every interaction feels transactional. Every alley feels watched. The film refuses sentimentality even when violence erupts. Death is sudden, ugly, and final. The visual language is stark and unflinching. Concrete housing estates, frozen beaches, and anonymous interiors dominate the screen. There is no romantic criminal underworld, just exploitation and cruelty. The pacing is deliberate, allowing tension to simmer rather than explode. Carter moves with purpose, not rage. That calm is what makes him dangerous. What elevates Get Carter is its honesty. It does not ask the audience to admire Carter, it forces them to confront him. His actions are efficient but hollow. Number 11, Withnail and I, 1987. Withnail and I is a comedy about failure that feels painfully real. Set in late 1960s, Britain, the film follows two unemployed actors drifting through cold flats, empty pubs, and fading dreams. What begins as absurd humor slowly reveals something deeper. Fear of obscurity, fear of mediocrity, fear of growing up. Withnail is theatrical, volatile, and self-destructive. His unnamed friend is quiet or observant and already drifting toward escape. Their weekend trip to the countryside becomes a slow unraveling. The humor is sharp but laced with sadness. Every joke feels like a defense against despair. The film captures artistic ambition at its most fragile stage, before success, before clarity. When identity is uncertain and confidence is performed rather than earned, Withnail lives inside exaggeration because reality terrifies him. The brilliance of the film lies in how gently it treats this tragedy. There is no mockery, only recognition. Visually, the film is muted and intimate. Rain-soaked fields, dim interiors, and empty roads reflect emotional stagnation. The writing is endlessly quotable, yet never shallow. Number 10, Dead Man's Shoes, 2004. Dead Man's Shoes is not a conventional revenge film. It is a slow psychological descent into guilt, trauma, and moral reckoning. Set against the quiet emptiness of the English countryside, the film follows a former soldier who returns home after years away. What initially appears to be a tale of intimidation and payback slowly reveals itself as something far more devastating. The film weaponizes silence. Violence is implied long before it is shown. Conversations stretch uncomfortably. Stares linger. The antagonist figures are not criminal masterminds, but small-town bullies whose cruelty feels disturbingly real. This grounding in realism is what makes the film unbearable in the best way. There is no cinematic distance. You feel trapped inside the consequences. The central performance is restrained and terrifying. The character moves with discipline, shaped by military conditioning and unresolved grief. Each act of revenge feels less like justice and more like ritual. The film refuses to glorify his actions. Instead, it interrogates them. Revenge is not empowering here. It is corrosive. As the narrative unfolds, the audience is forced to reframe everything they have seen. Number 9, Kes. 1969. Kes is one of the most honest depictions of childhood ever put on screen. Set in a Yorkshire mining town, the film follows a young boy trapped by poverty education systems and limited expectations. His life is defined by discipline, humiliation, and inevitability, until he finds a kestrel. The bird represents possibility without fantasy. There is no magical escape, only responsibility, patience, and care. Through training, the boy discovers dignity for the first time. The film treats this connection with absolute sincerity. There is no sentimentality, no manipulation, just quiet observation. The performances feel almost documentary in their realism. Authority figures are cruel, not because they are villains, but because they are indifferent. School is a place of control, not curiosity. Home offers no refuge. The world is already closing in. What makes Kes extraordinary is its refusal to soften reality. The film understands that hope does not guarantee survival. Beauty does not guarantee protection. When loss comes, it is swift and brutal. There is no lesson offered, only truth. Number 8. The Wicker Man, 1973. The Wicker Man is horror built on belief rather than fear. Set on a remote island, the film follows a devout police officer investigating a missing child. What he encounters is a community operating under a completely different moral and spiritual system. The terror does not come from monsters. It comes from certainty. The film unfolds patiently. Songs, rituals, and daily life are presented without judgment. The islanders are not villains in the traditional sense. They are cohesive, purposeful, and unashamed. The tension arises from collision rather than confrontation. The central conflict is ideological. Christianity versus paganism, order versus ritual law versus belief. The officer clings to logic while surrounded by a society that does not recognize it. Every interaction isolates him further. He is not threatened. He is ignored. The brilliance of The Wicker Man lies in its ending. It reframes everything that came before. The horror is not surprise. It is inevitability. The film forces the viewer to confront the discomforting idea that morality is contextual and that certainty can be deadly. Number 7. A Matter of Life and Death. 1946. A Matter of Life and Death is one of the most imaginative films ever produced by British cinema. Released just after the Second World War, it grapples with trauma, survival, and love through fantasy rather than realism. The story follows a pilot who survives a fall that should have killed him and finds himself caught between life and the afterlife. What makes the film remarkable is its ambition. Heaven is not depicted as mystical or vague. It is bureaucratic, rational, and strangely familiar. Courtrooms, escalators, and administrators replace angels and clouds. This choice grounds the fantasy and gives it emotional credibility. Life on Earth is shown in vivid color, while the afterlife exists in monochrome, reversing expectations and reinforcing the pull of the living world. At its core, the film is about choice. The pilot must argue for his right to live not through emotion alone, but through reason and love. The trial sequence becomes a metaphor for post-war identity as nations and individuals struggle to justify survival after unimaginable loss. Visually, the film was decades ahead of its time. Practical effects, innovative cinematography, and bold transitions still feel inventive. The emotional tone balances romance, humor, and grief without collapsing into sentimentality. Number 6. Local Hero, 1983. Local Hero is a quiet film about listening rather than conquering. Set in a small Scottish village, it follows an American oil executive sent to purchase land for an industrial project. What he encounters is not resistance, but curiosity, humor, and unexpected kindness. The film refuses conflict in traditional terms. There are no villains, no dramatic showdowns. Instead, it explores how ambition can be gently disarmed by community and place. The village residents are eccentric, but grounded. They understand the value of their land, not in profit, but in continuity. What makes Local Hero powerful is its restraint. The humor is subtle, the drama understated. The emotional shift happens gradually as the protagonist begins to question his own emptiness. Success has given him everything except meaning. The landscape plays a crucial role. Wide skies, quiet beaches, and endless horizons create a sense of perspective that urban life lacks. The film suggests that identity is shaped by environment and that disconnection is a choice. Local Hero rarely announces its themes. It allows moments to breathe, a look at the stars, a shared meal. Number 5, Performance, 1970. Performance is one of the most disorienting films ever produced in Britain. Released at the cultural crossroads of the late 1960s, it collapses crime identity and counterculture into a single hallucinatory experience. The story follows a violent gangster who hides out in the home of a reclusive rock star. What begins as a crime narrative slowly dissolves. Identities blur, power shifts. Reality becomes unreliable. The film uses editing, sound, and performance itself to destabilize the viewer. There are no clear moral anchors, only transformation. The rock star character embodies artistic freedom and psychological fracture. He is both mentor and mirror. The gangster initially dominates through violence, but gradually loses definition. Masculinity becomes performance rather than fact. The film confronts repression directly. Sexuality, violence, fame, and ego collide without apology. At the time of release, it was considered dangerous and obscene. Studios attempted to bury it. Audiences were confused. Critics were divided. Over time, Performance has been recognized as visionary. It predicted the collapse of rigid identity categories and the merging of celebrity and myth. Number 4, Secrets and Lies. 1996. Secrets and Lies is a film that unfolds like a quiet, emotional detonation. It begins modestly with everyday routines, ordinary conversations, and restrained performances. What follows is one of the most emotionally devastating portraits of family ever committed to film. Nothing explodes quickly, everything simmers. The story revolves around adoption identity and buried resentment. Characters carry decades of unspoken pain. Conversations avoid truth until avoidance becomes unbearable. The brilliance of the film lies in its patience. It allows discomfort to grow naturally. Silence becomes as revealing as dialogue. The central relationship is built not on melodrama, but on awkward honesty. When revelations arrive, they are not framed as shocking twists. They are framed as emotional consequences. The film insists that truth is not liberating by default. It is destabilizing, frightening, and necessary. What makes Secrets and Lies extraordinary is its empathy. No character is reduced to a stereotype. Flawed behavior is contextualized, not excused. Anger, grief, jealousy, and shame coexist within the same people. The film refuses moral hierarchy. The famous family gathering scene is one of the most raw sequences in British cinema. Number 3. The Innocents, 1961. The Innocents is horror built on ambiguity rather than spectacle. Adapted from a classic ghost story, it follows a governess caring for 2 children in an isolated country estate. From the beginning, the film suggests that something is wrong. It never confirms what that something is. The power of the film lies in suggestion. Shadows linger. Figures appear at impossible distances. Silence dominates scenes where music would usually intrude. The house itself feels alive, watchful, and complicit. The governess becomes both protagonist and potential threat. Her certainty is absolute. Her interpretation of events grows increasingly extreme. The film invites the audience to question whether the danger is supernatural or psychological. It never resolves that tension. The children are portrayed with unnerving restraint. Their behavior is ambiguous, not overtly sinister. This subtlety fuels paranoia. Innocence becomes suspect. Authority becomes unreliable. Visually, the film is immaculate. High-contrast cinematography transforms light into menace. Wide compositions emphasize isolation. Close-ups reveal internal collapse. Number 2. Sightseers, 2012. Sightseers disguises horror beneath cheerful surfaces. It presents itself as a quaint road trip comedy following a socially awkward couple exploring tourist landmarks. Slowly, that normality fractures, revealing something deeply wrong. The film weaponizes politeness. Violence emerges from passive aggression, insecurity, and entitlement. The characters do not see themselves as monsters. They see themselves as justified. That self-perception is what makes the film unsettling. The countryside is bright, open, and calm. Murders occur without cinematic emphasis. They are treated as inconveniences. This tonal contrast creates a sense of moral vertigo. Laughter catches in the throat. At its core, Sightseers is about repression. The characters have lived constrained lives dominated by obligation and resentment. When those constraints break, violence becomes expression. The film suggests that suppressed identity can mutate into cruelty. The performances are grounded and painfully believable. These are not caricatures. They are ordinary people who never learned how to process desire or anger. Their crimes feel disturbingly plausible. Number 1. The Offence, 1973. The Offence is one of the most psychologically suffocating films ever produced in Britain. It is not a police thriller in the conventional sense. There is no mystery to solve, and no heroic authority figure to admire. Instead, the film dismantles the idea of justice from the inside out. The story follows a veteran police detective worn down by years of exposure to violence, cruelty, and moral compromise. When a brutal crime occurs, his response is not measured professionalism, but eruption. What follows is not investigation, but interrogation of the soul. The film unfolds largely through conversation. Interrogation rooms, corridors, and flashbacks become battlegrounds of memory and guilt. Reality fractures as the detective struggles to separate duty from obsession. Authority becomes dangerous when left unchecked. Visually, the film is claustrophobic. Tight framing, oppressive interiors, and sudden temporal shifts create disorientation. The world feels unstable because the protagonist is unstable. There is no external villain, only internal collapse. Despite its boldness, The Offence was largely ignored upon release. It was too bleak, too confrontational, and too honest. Today it feels disturbingly relevant. It is a film about power, accountability, and the cost of moral certainty. Few films dare to look this directly at institutional failure. Fewer still survive the stare. These 13 British films were never small. They were simply overlooked. Each one challenges comfort, rejects easy answers, and trusts the audience to engage deeply. If great cinema is meant to disturb, illuminate, and endure, these films succeed completely. Seek them out. They have been waiting.